Picking up where I left off, I don't know where I stopped, but I know I was speaking in regards to the difficulties of going to school while also engaging in the hospital, and I kind of spoken on some of the times where the hospital staff and my parents were impressed with my level of empathy or understanding of very complicated psychological issues that could arise, or not psychological issues, but feelings of jealousy, inadequacy, or resentment because I get to go home and they don't. Other kids that were there that I was meeting couldn't. But all of this, as you can imagine, and I will go in deeper, this is just a precursor type of glance at a quick go through of what my life was in the early stages, in my formative years. But I will try to expand and expound on what that really meant in detail and how that really affected my understanding. Like, I got a really intimate look at the human condition, being in hospitals every day, being engaging with people whose time was presumably very limited on this planet, especially coming from the fact that most of the people I was meeting was kids in the children's ward. They had lived limited life, and many of them were expected to live a shorter, more limited life progressing, moving forward. And that's really where I need to focus this for a time. So I'll probably do 3 or 4 long ass hour videos just describing. I don't want to do it right now necessarily because I just want to kind of give it still more of a brief of a few more things. But the thicket of what I'm trying to convey to you is what I learned in those hospitals, which in this case was Sunrise Hospital. It was Humana Hospital, then it became Sunrise Hospital, and it became Sunrise Humana. And then I don't know what it's called now, but in that hospital, UMC, medical, like this is where I learned so much about what I've been able to learn from the world. And it is indispensable information for one to understand why these systems are inefficient. And that's a very kind way to put it. Illegitimate, based in violence. However you want to put it, the human condition is bigger than these stupid little systems like capitalism and communism and socialism. And I know that people have their own understandings of what those things are, capitalism, socialism, and how they function and what they mean and what they do. I'm here to tell you that they don't function like that, and that's not what they are here to do. Everywhere you see human beings engaging in a social setting, there's one of two things going on: voluntary interactions or coerced, enforced, forced interactions. One is legitimate, the other is illegitimate. And what this aspect and part of what I'm talking about has granted me the vision to see is that if I wanted to teach people this, if I wanted to show people what my brother taught me and what I learned from the human condition and from such a very specific and high vibrational, high risk, low positive outcome environments, and their relation to the systems and how the systems govern them, is that human beings, are infinitely and boundlessly adaptable and programmable. And the point of anything that you're going to see here, aside from you getting to know me better, getting to know your uncle better, getting to know your uncle Devontae better, getting to know who or have an idea of who your grandma and grandpa was on my side of the family, is that your identity, who you are watching this video right now, and how it has shaped you and will continue to shape you and how you will be shaped, you don't have to sacrifice your personal identity and self to these systems for you to be successful, for you to be taken care of, for you to be secure, for you to be whatever you want. You do not need to be attached to these systems at all. You don't need to believe in countries for them to or to not exist. You don't need to believe in genders for them to or to not exist. You don't need to believe in races for them to or to not exist. And you don't need to believe in any of those things for them to function or for them not to function, for them to be efficient in their means or inefficient in their means. You get to retain the beautiful you regardless. You might still be coerced under duress into doing, engaging with, participating with the system, but you don't have to believe it. And that is the main point of anything you will see here, because believing in it is the first step to legitimizing it. And legitimizing something that is unsustainable isn't sustainable, or at least attempting to legitimize something and to incorporate that, pun intended, into how you operate on this finite, naturally occurring resource rock planet is not a prerequisite. You can be successful and do what society is doing, no matter what society is doing, without believing that society inherently, intrinsically has the unchallenged authority to do so. The ability, yes, we have the unchallenged ability to do something, to do any of this shit. Aliens and angels and gods ain't never stepped out the clouds and say, hey. No, you can't do that. We can do it. But like Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park said, should we? We're so preoccupied with whether or not we could. We never stop to think if we should. That's what I'm here for, is that we can, we could, but we also need to be very meticulous about the should we process. And you don't need, should you incorporate your own identity or should you render your own identity from your proximity to coercive, exploitative, unsustainable, tyrannical systems? No. You don't have to attach your identity to that. And that's still going to be the main point of anything dealing with me, this channel, whatever. But I learned that more, or it was really driven home because it never helped anybody. Believing in it never made anybody's disabled or differently abled kid not disabled. If being patriotic meant that my brother could walk, I'd be the most patriotic person in the world. If being patriotic and believing in countries and believing in capitalism and believing in stock markets and taxes and legislation and bureaucracy, if that shit worked, if it made it so that people who couldn't talk could talk, if it made it so that people who couldn't walk could walk, if it made it so that people with crippling and debilitating pain didn't have to experience that pain, I'd be the most patriotic, capitalistic sumbitch ever. But those things don't. Believing in it doesn't help. Being patriotic doesn't help. Thinking that you're supporting capitalism doesn't help your differently abled kid. You know what does help all those things? Science and technology. Every last one of those things, science and technology has achieved. You don't need societies for science. You don't need money for science. You don't need anything but good old-fashioned, the scientific method, good old-fashioned principles. And none of those things have anything to do with capitalism, authority vested in strangers, and these systems and institutions that people have propped up as if they do something when all they do is stand on the shoulders of scientific giants. Because these systems cannot accurately or efficiently produce those results because it costs too much to do the right thing, and you don't make enough money doing the right thing. You make more money doing the wrong thing in imaginary systems. And that's why why they're so attractive, is because it's imaginary, it's subjective, so we can do what we want. Objective and sustainable and abundant comes with restrictions. It comes with sharing, possibly. And those restrictions are not imposed, not the imposed kind of restrictions, but the kinds of relevant restrictions that one would ethically impose upon themselves when they are in possession of information that their behavior proceeding in one way or another would develop consequences for. Meaning, the restrictions are natural or they're manufactured. And I don't want manufactured restrictions. I'm okay with reasonable, able to be reasoned restrictions based on the emerging realities of the scientific method being applied to the environments that we live in so that we can operate in that environment. We've used technology to ascertain that there is not enough fish in this motherfucking lake anymore. It would be super cool if you didn't fish in there, or and if you did, just get one or two. That we're not going to threaten you, and you don't need our permission. But that's science and and technology. Now there's a bulletin board up, technology, or some kind of holographic in the present augmented reality. You got your little Google glasses on. You look over, and it says fishing restricted. There's nobody who's going to try to come unalive you, but it is restricted. It is restrained because there's not enough fish in there. And then, of course, we use science and technology to ascertain how we might be able to encourage population development in the lake so that we can return to normal operating parameters. But this is all neither here nor there, because a lot of people will try to insert a bunch of nuance there, where obviously there is nuance, but for the most part. So I guess I'll speak on the fact of being, like I did when I was younger, being raised in Las Vegas. It became more of a factor as I became older, because Sin City, a place where people would go to, they would leave their hometown, maybe either on vacation or permanently looking for a different life. They would come to Vegas, and oftentimes, they would leave their common sense, their morals, their ethics, their values, if they ever had them, back where they came from, so that they can let loose in Vegas. And so I was able to observe people in a life and death, life-threatening, life-altering hospital situation standpoint, and also the depraved, I'm throwing away most of my values and things that I think that I believe in and care about to come and engage in hedonistic behavior here in the City of Lights, Las Vegas. And it gave me a front row seat. One of my favorite things to do in Las Vegas was people watch. And you just sit back on the Las Vegas Strip or wherever, downtown, and you just watch swaths of people walk by. And in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, early 2000s, oh man, this was riveting, because everything that people are saying is just crept up on us now. People choosing their feelings over facts, people thinking that their opinion is equal to the truth, people being distracted by phones, people being distracted by each other, people not knowing who they are. I could see all this very obviously, very vividly in watching people from all over the world. These people came from all over the world. I've seen people from China. I've seen people from India. I've seen people from Europe. So, and I know where I am and where I was. I'm still living in the present. And this is why I'm trying to do this here, is because it's very difficult to get the kind of space and time I need to actually just be able to communicate this. But yeah, Earth, cool. The world, the clothing, the institutions, the structures, the infrastructure we put over that shit, boom. That's the moral of that. I knew it. And there's nuance. Like I guess as stories come up. There was a place in Las Vegas on Boulder Highway across the street from the Boulder Station and Sam's Town. That stood for a minute. It was called the Mini Grand Prix, Las Vegas Mini Grand Prix, but it was the East Side location. There's one on Rainbow somewhere. Everybody knows that one. but there used to be one on Boulder Highway near Sand Hill, right across the street from the Boulder Station, but also near the Crystal Palace Skating Center, which was a staple in Las Vegas. And I used to go to this mini Grand Prix and have a ball. It's where I first learned how to drive, and this was something that would go on after baseball. I used to play baseball. My brother would go to visit and watch, not visit, but watch me do a baseball. Sometimes I'd have to go from baseball practice to the hospital, or from the hospital to baseball practice, or from the school to the hospital. Like, it was a thing. And this is how I grew up. But we would take my brother out to my baseball games, and he would be in a crib. And I remember one time that somebody did up, and we had him way out, usually on whichever side of the field we were on, but at the very end of the fence and back off the field. So like behind the dugout. And I was in like center field, and somebody popped a fly ball straight up. And that shit went, not straight up, but up to the right, to the left. And it went towards left field, and it went towards my brother and his crib. And I didn't know that it was going that direction until it was coming back down. And even though I was in center field, I made it over there and caught that ball like right over my brother's head. Like, not happening, bro. He's got enough going on. He doesn't need to be impaled with a baseball. And so I played baseball and enjoyed a great deal of many of the so quote unquote normal aspects of growing up and being a young person in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, being able to go anywhere. I remember I lived, let's see where we lived on a street called, after the El Cortez, we moved into one of my grandfather's apartment complexes, because after he was successful with the Uptown Motel, he bought a few apartment complexes in California, and he bought two on what was called, let me see if I can remember this, 28th Street, which was predominantly Hispanic. 28th Street had a 28th Street Boys and Girls Club, and behind the 28th Street Boys and Girls Club on 28th Street and it wasn't Eastern, 28th Street and like Charleston yeah, it's somewhere. Oh yeah, it was like Eastern and Stewart. 28th Street was on Eastern and Stewart, between Charleston and like Bonnet, whatever. But my grandfather owned one of the apartments, and there was a bunch of cockroaches in this fucking thing, and we hated it, and we were very poor. One time my mom found and you're wondering, like, how y'all got a grandfather that your mom's dad owns a hotel, owns these apartment complexes, y'all paying full rent in the hotel that you were staying at, and the apartment complex. Is like, you ain't getting a deal. No, you ain't getting no deal. We just got guaranteed to be able to stay there. We didn't have to go through some of the red tape that was even common still then. But yeah, I'll get to that later, of how you can have individuals in your family with millions of dollars and you have nothing. And this is like first gen. This isn't like, people have their opinion about nepotism and wealth and passing on any kind of wealth or ability or stability. But ultimately, it gets your Uncle D killed, them not actually supporting us. They kind of like white supremacy. They kind of sprinkled us some crumbs. Oh, you're not going to be able to make rent this month. Oh, here's a little bit. Here's half of that, so that you can make it handouts, never hand ups. And this is why I successfully and perpetually do not identify with any communities that come from the United States. I am, and I do identify with the people that actively shape the world, which are activists. But when we put skin colors on that, it's irrelevant to me, because true activists, true authentic people don't have that problem. And allowing myself to be informed in such ways, which I will speak on, being Black in the United States and in Western imperialism, being a man under a patriarchal or in a patriarchal system. But I learned these things very early on, that for the most part, humankind was just playing a big old game of shenanigans, pretending to know what they're fucking doing and having absolutely no clue the entire time. Well, most people having no clue. And then I began to do a lot of research. I had to, like, my punishments for forging my own report card, which was big for me because I was intelligent, but I didn't do any of the work because I didn't have anything to prove to anyone. I got like straight D's and C's and F's all throughout school, except in science. I got B's. I could have got A's in any of that shit, but it was all very redundant and boring. And I could obviously tell that they weren't teaching me what I should know. They're teaching me what they wanted me to know, which was nothing. And even their little whitewashed history was only good enough and only valuable in the way that I could compare it to other historical awarenesses that I was having, because I had to read the encyclopedia. When I got in trouble, when I forged a report card, I would have to literally take a fucking paragraph, not a sentence, a fucking paragraph out of the Encyclopedia Britannica, which my parents had gotten me the entire, like they went on the QVC type of show back then and gotten me the entire A through Z Encyclopedia Britannica, and I would have to pick a paragraph out of this book, out of one of these volumes of books, and write that paragraph hundreds, sometimes 1,000 or so times. And so I became very, the information, because I was at least allowed to look up what I wanted. I could find the paragraph that I was supposed to copy and the surrounding area and actually obtain the information. So I became very aware that, ooh, our son is chewing on his shirt. Let's look at this, shall we? Look at how wet it is. Look at how wet it is. Oh my God. Oh my God, he's just chewing on it. Look at the clothing on this one.
No, Dad.
Look at her clothing. The hair.
Dad.
Yeah. You guys ready?
Yeah.
So we're at the library. We go to the library every Tuesday. And they.
Go to Walmart first.
Walmart. I never said I was going to Walmart. We have food at home. So what do y'all want from Walmart? Hold on. Nope. Yeah, when we're done. So I'm going to end this video, obviously, but this is for you guys. Give me a second. This is for anyone who wants to be closer to me, anyone who wants to remember me if I'm not here, anyone who appreciates anything that I've ever offered. So I love you and I miss you and I'm always with you forever, because together forever with you is not enough. Huh? Yeah, you be quiet. Why are you talking while I'm talking? What are you doing? Together forever is not long enough. And that's where we live. And energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred. So I'm not gone, just like Uncle D's not gone, and no ancestor is gone, and no being is gone. We are the one. And I will be explaining what I believe in regards to creation and the existence of existence itself in a later video. Be well, be safe out there, and stay focused. Keep your eyes open and don't let nobody sell you no bullshit.